Well, good morning and welcome once again to Elevenses. It's show number 380. It's Wednesday, the 1st of November, sadly, the first of the winter months. Is it? No, yes, it is the first winter months, or is it? I can't remember now. November. No, it must be the last of the autumn months. I'll get it right in a minute. Anyway, 1st of November it is. It's a pretty grey and dull day here at the moment. Been raining overnight, fairly breezy. And what have we got for you in today's show? Well, the first item, of course, is tomorrow's named storm, which is moving in overnight and will really hit most of the UK tomorrow. The helmet tests are going to be conducted by the Transport Research Laboratory. More on that. A new stability control system for lower priced bikes has been unveiled by Bosch. Meanwhile, a Swedish rider doesn't seem to need any help from Bosch because he's just set a Guinness World Record for the longest hands-off wheelie. There is to be a new FIM road race series for women. And Jonathon Rea is saying farewell to Kawasaki. We'll also have a quick look at a new Keis heated vest and a new 80 horsepower 504, which has been shown off by CFMoto in China. And then finally, in depth today, we'll finish up the two-parter on staying warm on motorcycles with some of the science behind the insulation that we need while we're riding a bike. Now, don't forget, if you've got a question, anything you want to ask about the show, anything else, if you really want to, drop me a line. I'll happily try to answer online if I possibly can. If I can't, I will get back to you in the aftermath of the show. So, all right, settle yourselves down for the next 30 minutes or so while we run through what we have to talk about today. Right, okay, so let's start with the weather then, because as long ago as last Sunday, the Met Office were predicting that we would be seeing a big storm on the way today. And it's due to come in this evening. It's named Kieran. It's as such, it's the first named storm. Right now, it's actually starting to spin up in the mid-Atlantic as a low-pressure system is meeting a very strong jet stream. Now, this all comes on the back of rain overnight in Northern Ireland has caused flooding. Slightly earlier this week there was flooding in the Isle of Wight, which was pretty bad. So there's been rain all over the country basically, and the Met Office says that with this heavy and persistent rain that's going to fall coming onto already saturated ground, there is a risk of further flooding. So do check your weather maps. There are new yellow rain warnings out for large parts of the UK for the problems of heavy rain and flooding. More to the point though, after a breezy, showery start to today, the storm will arrive in the far southwest this evening, Wednesday, and it will move steadily east through Thursday, and it will be bringing very strong winds to a large part of the south of the UK. The strongest winds, where there is an amber weather warning in force, will be Pembrokeshire, southwest and southern England, all the way basically from Cornwall to Kent, and just clipping up into Essex as well. Gusts of 70 to 80 miles per hour are predicted, and the amber warning points out that the dangerous winds could bring a danger to life. There'll be flying debris as well as disruption to power supplies and travel. Elsewhere, a yellow warning extends across a lot of the south of England, all the way basically from Gloucestershire right through London up to Norfolk, covering the East Anglian area. Gusts could reach 50 to 60 miles per hour before the storm clears off into the North Sea on Friday and basically dissipates out there, but it will continue to bring plenty of rain. So watch out for trees coming down as well. The combination of strong winds, wet soils, and the fact that the trees outside still have plenty of leaf in many areas, branches will come down and some complete trees. So keep an eye on all this if you are planning on travelling anywhere, particularly if you're thinking of using a motorcycle. Do think very carefully before you go. All right, okay, so on with some news items then to connect with motorcycling generally. It's just been announced that the Transport Research Laboratory, the TRL, have been tasked by the Department for Transport with delivering the next stages of the long-running Sharp helmet safety scheme. Now, like the Down Under Moto Cap clothing testing regime that I've been talking about for the last 5 years or so, the Sharp scheme is also there to offer consumers, i.e. you and me who buy the helmets, information via an independent assessment of the motorcycle helmet's performance. So the TRL's Sharp helmet test, as shown here in the photo, it was originally launched in 2007, and the idea is to try to test around 30 helmets each year. And what they do is they provide information about how the helmet performs in various impacts, which allows us to look beyond the existing legal minimum standards. And in particular, what the helmets do is that they actually impact the helmet with more demanding tests than are actually required by the regulations. And what they've done to achieve that is they've taken research findings from international studies on road traffic incidents from all over the world. And what they do then is they replicate these real world motorcycle crashes and the helmet impacts under controlled laboratory conditions to see how different helmets respond to the same sort of impact. Now, this independent assessment of the helmet impact performance is then displayed with safety ratings, which are in a simple 1 to 5 star system. And that allows motorcyclists to go along and have a look at helmets which perform significantly better in real world impacts. Now, Dr. Phil Martin, who is the head of transport safety at TRL, he said, quote, "Our appointment on the Sharp program feels like a return to our roots. From developing the original Sharp protocols to advising the DFT on updates to the test protocols to reflect evolving helmet designs, TRL has been involved with Sharp for almost 20 years. Over time, we've collected better data and provided better insights about head injuries suffered by motorcyclists in road collisions. The data not only reveals the cause and location of injuries, but also the long-term effects derived from decades of collision research and our experience in providing expert testimony for personal injury claims." Now, Sharp also offer a guidance on the proper fitting of a helmet, and this information is provided at the point of purchase. And there, basically, the idea is to help all of us make more informed choices within our budget. If you want to find the Sharp rating system, if you haven't visited it before, you can find it at the link which I'm just about to put up for you in the comment stream. Do go over there and have a look. There are some surprises over there for you, I suspect. So there it is, there's the link. Now, beyond that, there are some indications from the way that the press release was actually worded to suggest that TRL will be pushing forward with updating the existing standards. And finally, if you want to meet the TRL team, they will be manning the Sharp stand at Motorcycle Live in Hall 3A at the NEC, which is the 18th to 26th of November for that show. Pop along, say hi, and say that Kevin from ELEVENSES sent you. Right, what's going on here? There's some messages, a bunch of messages from Kevin. He says there is genuine high-level multi-agency concern re the repercussions of the forthcoming storm. Yep, okay, so yes, he's confirming what I just said, that as well as flooding, there's concern about tree root stability due to saturated ground. And he says there's a 100-foot tree due south and adjacent to his own timber home. Well, hopefully that tree won't fall in your direction, Kevin. So thanks for that update on that. Oh, why have I got that there? Got a question. That should be disappeared by now. I forgot to turn that off. There we are. Right, okay. So what else then? Well, coming back to motorcycles, Bosch is set to unveil a new version of its motorcycle stability control system, MSC. Now, the existing iteration of Bosch's MSC could, say Bosch, have prevented or mitigated 5% of all motorcycle accidents involving personal injury in Germany alone, had every motorcycle been equipped with it. That's according to the company's research. So, whilst I have no reason to doubt it, it's always worth taking with a little pinch of salt whenever anything is promoting their own product. But anyway, as we know, ABS has been standard fitment on motorcycles in the EU for quite a few years now. Bosch were at the forefront of developing that, and many new bikes, of course, also have traction control. Now, they straightforward straight line ABS and brake traction control are relatively simple and relatively cheap to install, because all that's actually needed is a system that measures the speed of the front and rear wheels to see if there's a distance, then the sort of equipment to actually intervene to stop them locking. Now, but they only work reliably, of course, in a straight line, because the basic ABS and traction controls aren't effective, or so effective, when a motorcycle leans into a corner. Now, I discovered that straight line traction control isn't much use in a corner for myself, and I actually managed to spin up the rear wheel on a bike on a wet corner in New Zealand back in 2018. Now, the traction control was set to maximum, but it did absolutely nothing at all. It simply didn't work, and I had to resort to the old-fashioned traction control by actually moderating the throttle to prevent what could have been a nasty crash. Now, the slide was certainly big enough to cause the driver immediately behind me to do emergency stop. He obviously thought I was about to fall off. But newer machines offer launch control, wheelie control, stoppie control, and advanced cornering stability systems. And in fact is, according to Bosch, this potentially life-saving control technology has actually become cheaper, more compact and lighter, which in theory should have opened the door to fitting these advanced stability aids to less expensive machines. But as I'm sure you've noted, these aids have largely been restricted to top-end motorcycles, and they're even marketed by some manufacturers as premium features. They're often not available on the base model, only if you empty your wallet rather more to get one of the up-spec versions of the bike. So more budget bikes have had to make do with these straight line anti-lock braking and traction control. But that may be about to change because the inertial measurement unit, the IMU, is the data processing device that's at the center of this technology. Bosch have been continually refining and developing their 6-axis IMU, but having looked, as I said, how it's being deployed mostly on the sort of the higher end bikes, the German motorcycle manufacturer of this technology has now created a smaller and cheaper 3-axis ABS sensor, which is compatible with their latest version of their motorcycle stability control system. And they are therefore aiming this specifically at less expensive, smaller capacity motorcycles, which, as I point out fairly regularly, are those being ridden by the youngest, most at-risk riders. Now, it's often, I think it's long overdue, frankly, that these aids should be fitted. They're now proven, they're known to work. They should be standard fitting on all bikes and not just available to the well-heeled. Okay, so you may or may not agree with me on that. Let me hear what you have to say. I'm always interested in, as I say, in your comments. Don't forget, this show goes out on Tuesdays and Tuesdays. What am I talking about? It goes out on Wednesdays and Sundays. 11 o'clock normally. Very rarely I miss a show. I do occasionally have to record one, and very occasionally I also have to adjust the time, but normally 11 o'clock Wednesdays and Sundays. And if you want to catch up with any that you've missed, the place to go is my YouTube channel, Survival Skills UK, where you will find them all in their own playlist, going right back to the very first one 380 shows ago. So do go over there, have a look, and look at my other videos while you're over there too. Right, okay, so what else have we got to say to you? Kevin says Honda missed a trick by not putting the IMU on the latest CB750 Hornet. Yeah, perhaps, but again, you know, this is aimed at a budget bike. This is how they justify keeping the price down. I don't know if there will be an updated version coming along soon. That's often what happens, of course, is when they come to do an update, because there's little else they can update really. Now it's likely that the stability control will appear. So anyway, right, next story. Somebody who clearly didn't need any of Bosch's help to maintain their stability is a Swedish motorcyclist. Now this story popped up about a 3,000-foot wheelie, and it was said to be a new Guinness World Record, and I was a little bit surprised by that because I recall Dave Taylor almost but not quite managing a lap of the TT circuit on the back wheel. This was years ago, back in the 80s. If I remember correctly, he finally had to put the front tyre on the ground when he went round Governor's, which is sort of literally a few hundred metres from the finish line. So he managed 37 miles or so on the back wheel. So I double checked, and what Elliot Grundahl had actually achieved was the longest no hands motorcycle wheelie, and Dave Taylor certainly had his hands on the bars. Now Grundahl managed a ride of 918.24 metres. That was back in July this year in Sweden, and last week the Guinness Book of Records actually shared the video to their Instagram page, and you can watch it at the link which I have just popped up on screen. At the same time, they ratified 3 other records which are all to Indian riders. Captain Abhijit Singh Grewal, he created the world record for the, quote, longest continuous ride standing on the seat of a motorcycle, after he covered a distance of 107.92 kilometres, that's just over 67 miles, on the bike of his seat. Halvidar Harikesh Yadav, he created a record for the longest motorcycle ride whilst sitting on the tail light. Why anybody would want to do that, I have no idea. And he covered a mammoth 356 kilometres in 9 hours and 17 minutes. And I can't believe how uncomfortable he must have been at the end of that ride. And Halvidar Manish, he secured the world record for the longest wheelie on a Royal Enfield 350. He covered a distance of 2.4 kilometres. So he's got a bit of catching up to do, really, hasn't he, there? Good effort, but no cigar, as they say. Right, okay, so what's next? Keis, the apparel, they are the British manufacturer of clothing. They have just launched a new heated body warmer, so let's have a quick look at it. This is what it looks like. Nothing particularly outstanding there, but zoom in a bit so you can see it a little bit more closely. It just looks like a standard body warmer, doesn't it? But it's said to be made from the company's Ultraflex panels, and they provide 4-way stretch for a body hugging fit. Now, what Keis say in their press release to go with this garment is, for maximum efficiency, heated clothing needs to be pressed gently against the body. Too tight and it can cause sores, too loose and it's less effective. I wonder how long you would actually have to wear this garment to create sores. Perhaps they mean sore patches, I don't know. Anyway, flex. The flex in this allows the rider to move easily, and that's something that's not always possible with the alternative layering up approach, which can turn the rider into the Michelin Man. More on that at the end of the show when I get into my in-depth piece. Now, the material is thin, so that's a bonus, because what that means is, this may not be obvious when you first think about it, but it fits under existing riding gear. You can have 2 types of riding gear: baggy, that allows you to layer up underneath it, or comfortable fit, which doesn't really give you much space for putting anything else underneath it. So this next generation body warmer is actually said by Keis to provide almost 3 times the heating power of their previous versions. Now, it's available in all sizes from 2XS up to 3XL, but it isn't cheap, I will admit that. It's the Keis B601RP Ultraflex heated body warmer, and when you go onto their website you'll find it retails for £180, including VAT, which is good news. But right now it is actually being supplied with a free heat controller, which is worth £38, and of course you do get the loom to connect it to your bike also included. So visit the Keis website if you want to find out more about that. And do make sure that you stay to the end of the show, because I am going to talk about the science behind heated vests and why I think they are a far better investment than thermal clothing or jackets with insulated layers. Right, okay, so moving on rapidly. A new 6-round series, the FIM Women's Motorcycle World Championship, will go ahead next year. It's to run at existing World Superbike rounds, and you can see the ladies racing at Misano in Italy, the UK's Donington Park, Portimao in Portugal, then at Hungary's still under construction Balaton Park circuit. The penultimate race will be at the second Italian round of the World Superbikes, but a new event at the Cremona circuit, which is just south of Milan, and the finale will be alongside the men at Jerez in Spain. The events will run on the same sort of familiar Friday Superpole, then twin races on Saturday and Sunday events, so they will get plenty of track time. Now, it will be a single make series, and Yamaha have supplied a race prepped YZF R7. Be interesting to see how they go. Now, Jorge Viegas, the FIM president, said that the FIM have been working hard to include more and more women in racing, and that there are already women's championships in motocross enduro trial, and speedway is coming soon. So the 2024 World Superbike season will actually be contested over 12 rounds altogether for the men, beginning in late February at Phillip Island and concluding in Jerez. And that will be mid-October, and that of course is where the World Superbike finale has just occurred. And if you haven't watched the final race of the season, do watch it. It is a bit of a thriller. Now, one World Superbike rider who is moving teams is Jonathon Rea. His partnership in World Superbikes with Kawasaki has come to an end. Now, Rea's background was racing, because his father Johnny was a well-known, I think he was mostly 250s and 350s, and he certainly won the 1989 Junior TT on the Isle of Man. Now, Rea took the ride with Kawasaki back in 2015, but he wasn't exactly a newcomer in World Superbikes. He already competed and got the runner-up spot with 5 wins for the HM Plant Honda team in the British Superbike Championship of 2007. He switched to World Superstocks in a deal to race the Tankate Honda CBR 600RR. That was 2008. He finished second in his first season, and only season actually, because the deal allowed him to go straight onto their World Superbike team for 2009. And it wasn't an unsuccessful partnership. He managed 15 wins from 130 starts for the Honda teams. He finished with the highest of 3rd place in the championship in his final season with Pata Honda, but he didn't consistently hit the high notes on that bike, and his good results were also rather marred by a series of crashes and some serious injuries, including a broken femur. So it wouldn't be unfair to say that I think there were a few questions about why he was selected for the number 2 seat on the Kawasaki alongside reigning champion Tom Sykes, who had pretty much cleared up that year. Now, I think some of us, me included, assumed that he was being picked rather more as a sort of safe pair of hands to help shepherd Sykes towards a second world title, but I have to say that theory didn't last very long, because he won the first race on his debut on the Kawasaki at Phillip Island, and after 6 events he'd actually won 10 out of 12 races. I don't think he was ever seriously challenged that year, and he went on to finish the 2015 season 14 wins from 28 starts, 23 podiums, 2 pole positions, 11 fastest laps. Chas Davies and Tom Sykes hoovered up most of the remaining podiums, but Davies was a fairly distant second, about 130 points behind him, and Sykes another 40 or something behind that. And for Rea, things only got better. He won the title again in 2016, and he absolutely dominated the 2017-2018 series. He got seriously boring, frankly, watching the Kawasaki take the lead and disappear off into the distance. Now, the wins still came in 2019 and the COVID-shortened 2020 seasons, but they were a little bit more sparse. The racing got a little bit more competitive, but he still topped the table to take his 6 world titles. Now, he did slip to second in 2021 when he finished just 13 points behind Toprak Razgatlioglu, wonderful name. Then he was third in both the 2022 and 2023 seasons, but he just notched up one single win last year. Now, the County Antrim rider is therefore the first to have won 6 World Superbike Championships. In 9 seasons, he actually brought home 104 race wins, 220 podiums on the ZX10 RR, and he also holds the highest number of race wins in total, 107, and the highest number of fastest laps, podiums, and the highest points total. I'll be fair, his competitive style frequently led him to try to repass opponents at a fast opportunity after he'd been overtaken, and sometimes those moves weren't exactly the cleanest, or some did lead to contact and some to controversy. He actually wiped out title rival Alvaro Bautista at Magny-Cours in France in May last year, and they then got a long lap penalty for irresponsible riding, and he did later apologise, but he justified it by saying he was fighting for position. So midsummer this year, Rea did indicate he'd use the summer break to make a clear decision about the future, and in September it was announced he'd signed a 2-year contract to race alongside Andrea Locatelli in the Pata Yamaha team for 2024. Rea did have 1 year remaining on the contract with the Kawasaki racing team, but the statement is that the agreement was ended by mutual consent. So he will replace Toprak. I won't even mention his surname again. He's off to join BMW, and Rea will be a tough act to follow on the Kawasaki, but whether he can revitalise the Yamaha is another matter. Congratulations too, by the way, to Tommy Bridewell. He's also long been a very competitive rider in British Superbikes, and he's made it to the top step now. Apparently another thriller of a race. I haven't watched that one yet. So, okay, what else have we got to talk about? Well, if you still think that Chinese manufacturers, all they can do is copy existing bikes, I think we really need to start thinking about that again. The last week I showed you the 765 triple from CFMoto. That was recently shown off on track at China on the 2023 CFMoto day, and today here is a second machine that appeared out on the circuit at that event. Here it is. Let me get a zoom in picture for you. It is the 500 SR. Now, it's been developed by CFMoto, they say, from the ground up. It's been kept under wraps for 3 years as the machine progressed from concept production ready prototype. Now, what sets this bike apart from the other 500s that we have around at the moment is that it's powered by a 4-cylinder engine. So it's not going to be aimed at the A2 license category like things like the CB Hondas, for example. Now, as all the other manufacturers have been steadily switching to twins, Kawasaki alone have bucked the trend to date. They have reintroduced their ZX6R as a Euro 5 model, and they've also brought in to the UK brand new ZX4RR, which is also Euro 5 compliant, and it seems that CFMoto are now joining them with a high performance 4-cylinder engine. Now, all the reports say that the engine is pretty high tech, forged connecting rods and a lightweight low inertia crankshaft, read fast revving, and the bike will also get ram air. Now, this is a technique that's frequently been used by Kawasaki to boost the power on many of their engines. And again, also distancing the machine from the now common use of steel for frames. The engine's actually wrapped in an aluminium bridge frame. The upside down front forks are expected to be Kayaba. Ditto the rear shock at the back, the monoshock. The dual discs up front which have radial mounted brake calipers. They're anticipated to come like the rear from Brembo subsidiary J. Juan. Now the bike gets some fairly distinctive wings integrated into the fairing. If I just zoom in there, you can actually see that they're there right at the front. There's also some kind of spoiler at the rear. The machine is said to be exceptionally light. It's being said that it's 170 kilograms fueled up. That's 375 pounds. That's about what my old 404 used to weigh. That's no less than 23 kilograms, 51 pounds lighter than the Honda CBR 500R, which tips the scales at 192 kilos and puts out just 47 horsepower, remember. Even the Kawasaki ZX4RR is 10 kilos heavier at 189 kilograms. So if this is correct, the CFMoto will be an exceptionally light motorcycle. Top speeds claimed to be 230 kilometers per hour, 143 miles per hour. Power output's not been revealed, but it would imply something over 80 horsepower to get to that top speed with the race style aerodynamics. For comparison's sake, the Kawasaki 400 gets 73 horsepower out of its 399cc four-cylinder engine. The bike is likely to appear on the CFMoto stand at EICMA, that's the Milan Motorcycle Show. Will we see it here? Well, that's unknown at the moment. If CFMoto bring in their 450 SR Twin, which again I talked about several weeks ago, the 675 Triple, which I talked about in the last show, and this new 500 SR, then basically they'll have a sports bikes covering the entire range of power outputs from A2 legal up to over 100 horsepower. So really rewriting the what we thought were the rule books on motorcycles. Right, okay. Couple of comments. Des says that a race series just for women always seems like a bit of a cop-out to me. It's like saying they're not good enough to race in the real thing. Well, and he says he's known some really fast female riders in the past who could show a clean pair of heels to the men. Yes, I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm just trying to think of some names. Of course, we had a Moto3 world champion, didn't we? Who is female. Can't for the life of me think what the name is. But I suppose it's exposure as much as anything, isn't it? I mean, you have one make classes which allow riders to get into bigger classes. So if you can keep the cost down and you can get some exposure, maybe some of those ladies will start to feed in to the other classes. So I don't entirely disagree with Des, but I think he makes a good point. Are there perceptible capability difference between rider genders? Good question. I mean, physical strength would come into it, really, riding a motorcycle. Apart from that, I suspect not a lot, really, apart from perhaps riding a bit brains out on some of these bikes. But hey-ho. Right, okay, anyway, beyond the speculation, on to some science. Now, as you may recall, in the last episode I started to look at heated clothing, and what I was talking about was how to stay warm on a motorcycle. And basically I started with a personal anecdote about getting way too cold on a ride and basically seizing up so I couldn't even change gear. But today I just want to start with a question basically from a Facebook group. Now it read, to all you winter riders or even non-winter riders who wear balaclavas, is it better to get a branded from a proper bike accessory shop, or are the Amazon ones just as good? It's going to need to be warm as I will be riding in cold weather. Okay, so this is a fairly typical sort of question, isn't it? What clothing shall I wear to try to stay warm? Now, the face obviously is fairly exposed on a nasty cold day, even with the visor down, so it's not a bad idea to keep your face warm, but hey ho. The problem really is slightly different. Now, as I explained last week, our problem when riding is the temperature gradient. It flows between our skin, which is warm, and the air, which is cold. Heat always flows down that gradient from hot to cold, the outside world. Now, if we were dead, our body would continue to cool until it was the same temperature as the air. And it's that cooling effect that TV pathologists measure to estimate the time of death from body temperature. And in fact, happened to be watching a Scandi Noir drama, the first episode last night, and the pathologist did exactly that to estimate the time of death. Now, obviously, when we're not dead, the body generates its own heat, but the lowest temperature that we can tolerate without chilling is actually surprisingly high. It's actually around 25 Celsius or 77 Fahrenheit. So that is the temperature at which heat loss to the air is balanced by the heat produced by our body. That's a temperature that we could still just about manage to wander around nude in and not chill. But once temperature drops below 25, we can no longer produce enough heat to maintain our body temperature against this temperature gradient. So the colder the weather, of course, the steeper the temperature gradient and the more rapidly we chill. So what are our options? Well, many riders still rely on layering up. And what this means is we are wearing multiple layers of clothing to provide insulation by trapping air between our body and the outside world. Now, layering up, if we can do it properly, depends on 3 layers. This is important. The first one is the base layer. And this plays a role that many of us probably aren't fully aware of. We produce sweat even when we're cold, and if we have damp clothing, water acts as an effective conductor of heat away from the body. So we actually want to keep our body dry and the air next to our body dry, and that inside layer of clothing dry too. And this is where the base layer comes in. It's known as wicking, this movement of sweat away from the skin to keep us dry. And there are fabrics such as merino wool and synthetics which are great at doing this. So the base layer is the one we start with, and that needs to be a wicking layer. The second layer needs to be the insulating layer. This is what traps the warm air close to our body. Now, this is important too. You'll often hear statements such as a particular layer of clothing produces additional warmth by creating a barrier between the cold outside air and your body. That's one statement I found. But the fact is, this is insulation. It cannot create heat. All it does is it slows down the rate of heat loss, because no layer of an insulation is 100% efficient. All it can do is slow down the rate of heat loss to the outside world. So common insulating materials include fleece, down, duck down jackets, very effective, or synthetics like Thinsulate. So base layer, and then a mid layer, and then finally the outer shell layer. Now this does a different job. It's designed to be windproof and waterproof, but it is not designed to have thermal properties, and that in fact is why, if you think about it, in hot weather you'd remove a liner from your riding jacket, because the liner is what keeps you warm. The outer shell there is not effective at retaining heat, so in hot weather it helps us stay cool. So in theory too, this layer should be breathable, because remember that wicking base layer that was moving moisture outwards towards the outer shells of our clothing? Well, the outer layer, if it's breathable, then it allows the body moisture to escape, and in theory that prevents us getting too sweaty. There's just one problem here. As soon as it rains, the humidity outside our clothing rises, so there's no gradient this time in terms of water vapor. There's no movement of water vapor from the higher high area around the body to the high area around the body because of the rain. Even the best breathable garments get saturated with moisture too when they are subjected to a 70-mile-per-hour sort of water blast. So there is actually a role on wet days for a 100% waterproof garment over the lot. You won't breathe but then the breathable garment simply won't work in really wet weather. So, okay, now hopefully, as you worked out from last week's show, there are limits to how effective layering up can be. It may not keep us warm indefinitely because that depends on three factors: the quality of the insulation, the outside temperature, and the duration of our exposure. So the same kit that keeps us warm enough on the way to work in mid-January on a freezing night won't necessarily keep us warm on a longer trip where the temperatures are actually rather higher. It's all about the duration as much as anything else. So what are the symptoms then of getting chilled? And this is where it gets, again, we notice mostly our feet and particularly our hands are what go cold first, then they go numb, and finally they seize up. Certainly what happened to me on my ride back in the freezing weather. So not surprisingly, most riders will go out and they will try to buy things that keep their hands and feet warm. They'll buy thermal gloves, they'll buy thermal boots, they'll stick thermal socks in, they'll put liners inside the gloves, and they may well go to buy heated grips or heated gloves and even heated socks. But there is a problem here. Whilst they may be effective in keeping our hands and feet warm, heated grips, heated gloves, heated socks, they may make our extremities more comfortable, but they do not have a significant impact on our body's core temperature. And core temperature is what matters, because when core temperature falls, that's when the blood supply to the extremities shuts down, and that's why our hands, feet get cold in the first place. The moment you feel the need to switch on your heated grips or your heated gloves or your heated socks, your core temperature has already fallen. And this is where heated jackets come in. Now, heated clothing that's wrapped around your torso is a direct heat source. And by adding heat, what we are trying to do here is reduce and possibly even cancel out completely the effect of heat loss down that temperature gradient through our clothing. Now, heated vests, they are specifically designed to produce warmth around the torso, or chest and back obviously, but in particular the area around the kidneys is important because that's where the blood flow is close to the surface. If you can heat the kidneys, that's the quickest way to get heat into the body. So these jackets, waistcoats are worn close to the body where they can heat the core, where all the vital organs are located, and also that blood supply goes to the brain incidentally. So by keeping our torso warm, our core temperature stays high, and the heated vest is absolutely essential in doing that. And this in turn has positive effects on the circulatory system. Now, when the core chills, as I said, blood vessels constrict to conserve heat. Constrict to conserve heat. That reduces the circulation to the extremities, particularly hands and feet. That's why they get cold in the first place. So the heated vest helps prevent that vasoconstriction, maintains the blood throughout your body, but also down to the hands and feet, so they don't get anything like as cold when you're wearing a heated vest. During the year, the sort of winter, I can quite often get by with a pair of 3-season gloves rather than even heavy winter gloves, even on pretty cold days. And finally, of course, you can use heated vests as part of your layering system. By providing that heat direct to your core. And what they do then is they can reduce the need for bulky layering clothing, which allows us to move a lot more freely on the bike, of course. So with a heated waistcoat and a fairly moderate fleece under my riding suit, I've been comfortable enough for training sessions at temperatures approaching 0. I've even supplied blood during my days as a blood runner, and I've been out in well sub-zero temperatures at night with my heated clothing on. There was one day when it was the wrong side of -10. I very much remember that ride. I was cold after 3 hours, but I wasn't hypothermic like I was on that first ride I mentioned last time out. So remember, heated gloves, grips, boots, they feel great because they heat the fingers and toes, so they feel warm, but they are pretty ineffective at the bigger job of heating the body's core. Keep the body temperature core up, and the blood flows down our arms and legs and keeps the icy chill out of those extremities. So heated gloves and so on, okay if you're only ever going to do a short road, but if you possibly can, even if you're on a limited budget, always go for the heated jacket first, then add the grips and gloves as you want. That way you treat the disease of the falling body temperature and not the symptom of the numb fingers. Okay, I do repeat this story just about every year. Hopefully people will get the difference this time. Right, okay, that is it for today. Once again, thank you very much indeed for looking into today's show. If you do enjoy these in-depth items, I can recommend that you go and look at my commission page on my Ko-fi page. And if you've got any pressing questions that you want to have a natter about, I am more than happy to do that on my commissions page. So go and have a look at the link there and see what's on offer. Right, that is it for today. It's been a bit of a long one because that was a couple of quite interesting topics there to bring to you today. So hopefully see you back on Sunday for the next show. But if you are out there today, stay safe and shiny side up on your bike. And as I said, do watch the weather reports and keep an eye on what's happening with Storm Kieran. So from me, Kevin Williams of Elevenses and Survival Skills, thank you for looking in and stay shiny side up.